Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Mr. Garg. Thank you, Venkat, for really setting the stage and talking about some of the scenarios that you brought up. I will be talking about how AI is bringing a lot of those use cases to life and what is it that you can do in your respective departments. But just before we get started, just a little bit of where we are in the journey. I'm sure everyone agrees that we are at a cusp of technological revolution, right? Everything is changing as we know it exists today, whether it's healthcare, education, transportation, culture, public services, governance, everything. Basically, if you look at today and the future, there is a remarkable shift that's going to happen in the way we live, in the way we work, and the way we interact. So, and these are some of the priorities that are there for all of us as citizens, because we expect that the government should adapt to the services the way commercial and for-profit organizations interact with their customers in a very fast, easy to use, rapidly growing services. That's what we are used to as consumers. That's what we expect from the government as citizens, right? And that is what actually governments are aligning to as well, basically providing those services aligned to their mission and the vision that is there. So the foundational growth, foundational pillars of governance is what is available, and hence the services that are being provided, they need to go through a transformation as digital services, and the way they are being provided by the government is also changing. So it's the importance of the digital economy, and I'm sure everyone sitting in this room or sitting outside this room as the provider of these services by the government employees or as the consumer of these services as citizens of India, all of us are super, super proud because India is leading that charter. We are innovating and we are leading the world with all the services that are being provided, whether it is Digital India, whether it's Skill India, whether it is, translation mission, all the kind of services that are there to actually help in the growth of the country, the economic growth of the country, inclusion, development for all, whether it is for youth, whether it is for farmers, whether it is for women, across the board, that is being actually being provided by the government. And the North Star for that has actually been set by our Prime Minister by giving us the vision for digital inclusive India, which is powered by technology, enabling transparency, efficiency, and public participation. And when it comes to technology, of course, as you spoke about, Mr. Garg, about how you have taken some of the initiatives in enabling some of the very offline systems that were there to be enabled and create that information. AI is something which is really, really transforming. And this is probably a technology which offers us the potential to change the course of humanity more than any of the inventions that have happened in past. Whether you talk about electricity, steam engine, automobile, computing, internet, everything that has happened, this technology actually provides a true potential to genuinely transform how we can take step ahead and be much more efficient and productive. So if I have to remember 3 principles on what is driving this adoption. Number 1, it's intelligent cloud and intelligent edge, because computing is really ubiquitous and distributed. It has the ability to adapt to different kinds of inputs, whether it is vision, speech, touch, gesture, whatever it is. The second one, which is AI, which if you look at it, it's infusing AI in every experience. And I'll talk 3 things here. Please remember those words because we'll come back to these words as we go for open AI use cases, right? So infusing AI in every experience, mediating the interaction that we have with each other, with different departments, with different processes, etc., and distilling the information into insights and actions, the information that exists all around us. And the third principle is actually around interaction model that we have with computers or computing, which is not any more device first, it is human first, because all the information is available on any device at any time, in whatever language, in whichever form and shape that I need. So, and that's where the partnership with OpenAI for Microsoft comes in. We've announced this partnership a few quarters back, where the mission of both the companies is actually to democratize technology, and specifically in this case, democratize AI to be made available to everybody, to a developer, to a consumer, to an organization, to a citizen, to a government department. So as long as it is available to everyone, that's where our mission comes into place. So if you look at it, what are the, I just want to know a little bit, because now I'm going to go a little deeper into OpenAI. Show of hands, how much do you know about OpenAI? Do you think ChatGPT is equal to OpenAI? Okay, 2, 3. Okay, so ChatGPT is just an application of OpenAI. OpenAI is basically generative AI, and AI is not new. It has been in existence for decades now. It was deep learning, machine learning, all of those kind of logical systems that existed, neural networks that we created, and now it is generative AI. Very quickly, the basic difference is generative AI is based on the probabilistic distribution of data set. That means the data set on which you are training, or the model has been trained, it creates a response very similar to that data. So it's not like A or B pairs or decision making that is there. It synthesizes the information leveraging the LLMs. I'm sure you would have heard large language models, which are actually created. So just look at it. When we start growing up as kids and we start picking up the language, we look at ABC is what we learn, or whatever language you are in, you learn the basics, then you try to learn to create the sentences, you learn the grammar, and then you start creating everything. And when you converse with each other, you actually use that whole language that you've learned, put it in the context and understand. So that's what LLM is. So the large language models that have been trained or have been created basis billions and billions of information parameters and information that's available publicly to create a large language model. Now that's the base model that is there. You will then use it in your context. It will go back always to that model to get that basic thing, but then get the context from all the information that you have in your organizations or in your departments that you can actually use in the context. So there are 3 different models that are there. The first model, GPT, right? Whether it is GPT 3.4, 5 or 4 or whatever on which Chat GPT is based. That's actually a model which is text-based, human interaction, natural language. So how you and I speak, that's the interaction model that is there for GPT model. So anything that you have to create as applications in your organization. So if there are a lot of documents that are available and you need to create a summary from that document, that's what you will use the GPT model, right? The second is the DALI model, which is basically the creative content creation. Images that can be created leveraging DALI. So if there is a awareness campaign that needs to be launched for a program or a scheme that is being run today, that model is what you can use to create very creative communication, graphics along with it, etc. And the third model, which is for the developers, for an example, in NIC or CDAC or in your own departments, who can actually create the code for these applications leveraging AI. So I can, for an example, say that, hey, I need to write an application which is just a simple product catalog, right? I can give a very simple line of English input. It will show me the suggestions for the code, and I will just need to accept it. So these are the three basic models, and I'll give you examples of how we can use it. So the first example is content generation. So, and I'll go a little back and forth between the two slides. I gave a prompt today morning. Prompt is an input. So whatever input you give to ChatGPT, which you've used, consider that you are using it in your context. So enterprise GPT will have the information from all your departments, all your data, all your documents, everything. I just gave a simple thing, write a tagline for women empowerment by government in Hindi. And it gave me Nari Shakti, Desh Ki Shakti. Right? Now assume that you have your own scheme document attached to it. It would actually look at that document, what is happening in that scheme, and give you a tagline which could be as simple as this and as summarized as this. Right? The second thing is about conversation that we can have. So this is a bot, for an example, in any of the citizen services that you can create, any of the grievance management that you can create. So the bots, the interaction with them is where OpenAI comes into picture. So here is just an example that I took, which is I'm having trouble getting my Xbox to turn on. So it will give you the steps. But what is to note is the next question. So I am next asking, okay, that worked. What are the games that I can use? But I didn't tell that it is Xbox games I'm talking. But I gave Xbox in the previous question. So it is picking up that context and giving me the response only for Xbox games. So basically, it becomes, the conversation becomes very much in context and related to the entire conversation. For an example, two human beings talking. Every time we do not, with the next question or comment, we do not give the context. So that's the difference between the normal bots that exist today and how OpenAI is changing that. I'll skip the third one, but the fourth one is what, so this is again an input. This is the DALI model that I was talking to you about. A ball of fire with vibrant colors to show the speed of innovation at our media department. So that's the image that got. And this is because similar image is generated. It is never the same image that is generated. So it's not copyrighted image or anything that plagiarism is happening, etc. So if I go back, just taking these examples and look at what we saw, content generation, the tagline that got created, summarization. So whatever documents that might be there and information that might be there, basis that I am generating a summary. So if there is a 1,000-page policy document or a tender or an RFP or a bid that you have taken out, and there is responses that have come from tenders, and you want to actually look at just the financial contract or financial terms across different bidders, you can use the summarization capability without going through the entire document and just make your analysis on that, for an example. Semantic search, so be able to search it across different data sources that might exist in your department, which will be to discover the information and making the decisions based on that. And code generation, which I have already spoken to you about. So let's look at what are some of the examples that we have done as a part of our commitment and working with different departments and ministries and organizations. So the first one is Bhashini. It's a platform which even Prime Minister Modi spoke about during the BRICS summit. It is a platform that's been created by METI in partnership with Microsoft Research to ensure that the different languages that are available in India are catered to, and how we are able to reach out to everybody in the society for different purposes and making them aware to ensure that they're included. So let's just watch a video to know more about it.
मैं एक किसान हूँ। अपने ही गांव में हमारी ज़मीन है 2 एकड़, उसमें ही हम खेती उगाते हैं। रबी की और खरीफ की दोनों फसलें उगाते हैं, जिसमें गेहूँ है, ज्वार है, बाजरा है, तिल्ली है, सरसों है। बट यहाँ मेवात में कंदर बहुत से गांवों में न्यूज़पेपर नहीं पहुँच पाते हैं। ये सरकारी स्कीमें पहुँचती हैं, लेकिन ग्रामीण इलाकों में लोग योजनाओं की स्कीम पहुँच भी नहीं पाती है।
These are all communities living in media dark areas, which means that penetration of traditional media like television and radio is very sparse. There's also literacy challenges, so things like newspapers have a very low access in these areas.
In India, we have 22 constitutionally recognized languages, but apart from that, we have more than 100, almost 120 languages. Being able to provide justice to each and every citizen in their own language, it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity.
Jugalbandi is a chatbot that we built to solve 2 problems. One is this linguistic divide and the technological divide. We collected millions of parallel sentences for machine translation. We collected thousands of hours of data for speech recognition. And then we built state-of-the-art models on top of it using Harshini speech recognition model and Azure's OpenAI. So these capabilities allows us to understand language, transcribe it, translate it, and also synthesizes back in the form of speech.
चचा यू जुगलबंदी है, यहाँ पे हम लिख के भी और बोल के भी कुछ भी जो हमें स्कीम चाहिए, सरकारी योजना है, उनके बारे में जानकारी ले सका।
मैं किसान हूँ, मुझे सरकारी योजना कैसे प्राप्त हुई?
मेरा नाम जुगलबंदी है। मैं एक असिस्टेंट हूँ जो आपकी सरकारी योजना के बारे में जानने में और उसके लिए एनरोल करने में आपकी मदद करूंगी।
तो वहाँ से हमें लिखित में भी और ऑडियो में भी दोनों तरीके से जवाब आया, और किस किस डॉक्यूमेंट्स की जरूरत पड़ती है और किस किस फॉर्म की जरूरत पड़ती है।
The Ministry of Electronics and IT in the country has been working on this for the last 5 years now. And when ChatGPT was launched, that was really the catalyst for us being able to bring these pieces together. We've been able to categorize the diversity of India as an innovation opportunity. And if you're able to do that successfully, you're able to do it for the world.
I would have played this video at least more than 100 times in last 4, 5, 6 months that this got launched. And every time I play it, it actually gives me goosebumps, because this is the power of technology which can help us reach to the grassroots and include everybody in our growth and with the innovation that we're doing. There are 3 more stories, but I'll not spend the time on all of them. Democratizing healthcare, Venkat has already spoken about the eSanjeevani platform, so let me not spend time, but let me spend some time on the story, which is we partnered with an NGO called Seeds. They actually work with vulnerable communities in the country to make them aware of what are the challenges that they can face because of the natural calamities or the weather conditions, etc., that are persisting at that point in time. One of the model that they created was to save these communities from the heat wave. Of course, in North India, there is, the month of summers are very, very bad. So, and especially for these communities who do not have, who have very different type of houses, which have tin shades and, not proper ventilation and all of it, the heat effect proves that it is at least 6 degrees more or higher temperature than the surrounding urban conditions that all of us live in. So what they did was they worked with us to create the AI model by taking some of the parameters like what kind of roofs that they have, what kind of vegetation is there, how far are they from a water body, what kind of houses are built, etc. Each house in each community was mapped and the model was created. And it gave the risk score with the heat wave at a particular temperature in a particular week, month, etc. to predict that. But how did they use it? Predicting a heat score or creating that model is technically it's easy enough, but how did they use it? Because they go and tell it to the people that here your risk score is this, it doesn't mean anything. So they actually created a very natural language based conversation system with it, which their volunteers could actually use and communicate it to these communities and people and to take the steps. They worked with children in those communities to tell them about it, and that's how the whole thing became sustainable, and they started taking steps, and a lot of things were saved. And this has been running in Delhi. There are many communities that they have already catered to in especially East Delhi. So that's just one example. There are many more examples that Seeds has worked with us. They've worked with us on the cyclone and flood kind of calamities and how to predict and which communities to go to, which areas to go and support, etc. So the models and the technology and AI, how it is helping us in reaching out to everybody in the community is just great. And look at it, you can actually think of these examples and apply it to your department. And I'll talk about some of the other use cases as well. The fourth example here is about skilling. Anyway, Venkat has already spoken about our partnership with AICTE and the focus on getting the students skilled so that this becomes ubiquitous as well, right? So the big question I'm sure everyone has here is, how do I use this for my department? How do I use it so that I am able to reach I'm able to make the inter-department collaboration simpler. I'm able to reach, take my services to the citizens in a much more effective way. So before we go to the top 10 use cases, I'll go back to the 3 words that I said. AI being infused in every experience, mediating how we interact, right? And third, distilling the information into knowledge and predicting things. So if you keep these 3 things at the center of anything that you are doing, any process, anything that you're trying to build for your department or modernize for your department, keep these 3 things in mind and you will be able to come up with the AI use case. Document process automation, for an example. You spoke about how you had the prison management system, which actually helped the other security companies coming in and solving some of the cases as well. So look at it, that's an example of, simpler example of interdepartment collaboration. Now, for a document process, so there are enough and more documents that exist in the workflows that are there, and that can all be completely AI-fied, if I may say. Chatbots and digital assistants for citizens, very simple for us, but I gave you the differentiation between how it is different from the today's existing chatbots and IVRs that exist, which all of us use. Information discovery and management. Language translation, we saw an example of language translation and language processing. Fraud detection, there's a lot of finance that is involved in every department. There is a lot of disbursement that happens, etc. How are you looking at the, those trends which are out of usual and be able to find out those anomalies and detect those frauds and monitor the transactions that are happening. Grievance management. Document generation, you have to have a lot of communication that you create from your department, which needs to be shared with the ministries or other departments, other ministries, etc., etc. So you can just use the summarization capability of OpenAI to create that entire documents and communication. Designing the paperless systems, right? The judiciary, the courts, all of those, these can be paperless, and these are just some of the possibilities that are there. While these are the possibilities, one of the biggest question that's on everybody's mind is this: don't ask what computers can do, ask what they should do. This is something Brad Smith, our vice chair and president, he wrote in his book 4 years back. At that time, this seemed like a question of this generation, but this is a question that is right now in every house, in every organization, in every department, in every team meeting, at every table. When you're talking about AI, this is a question that pops up in our minds. And hence, responsible AI is very important, because we really need to adapt the technology, but responsibly. And that's what Microsoft has been really focusing on. And not with the launch of OpenAI partnership, but we started this work 8 years back when we started designing these principles for our governance framework, which is fairness, reliability and safety, privacy and security, and inclusiveness. I read out only 4 because these are the 4 things that you expect all the systems, all the applications to deliver. But every application and every system is based on the fundamental foundation of transparency and accountability. So it's not just the principles and governance framework that we created. We also created tools and technology that we provided to our customers, which you can use to build these responsible AI functions into your applications. And I'll give you an example which would be close to your heart. It's from an art gallery. There's an art gallery which had put a kiosk for people to come in and interact with it to know more about the art which is on display. Now, when you access the information, there are people from different age groups, different ethnicities, different demographics which are accessing it. And the interpretation of that image or art and the information that you want to give you might want to have difference in how you are telling it to a 10-year-old kid vis-a-vis you telling it to a 30-year-old person or a 40-year-old person or whatever. So our teams worked with the art gallery and leveraged the principles of responsible AI, and we could actually create it depending on what age you put in. You can recognize it visually as well, and you actually give the response differently to different people depending on who you are. This is very, very important, and I'll take one more example of the service, and this is just an ongoing thing. So face recognition service, for an example. This is a restricted service that we provide. And a lot of people ask why, because face recognition likely can be again used in a good way and a bad way as well. So the way we use or give access to people is you have to apply for using that service to us. For every form or everything that is submitted, we look at the use case for which you will be using it. Our teams work with you to validate that use case and say that, okay, this is to be good to be used, etc. Responsible AI team actually does that, and we allow the usage. But it doesn't stop here. Every year, we revalidate that use case. We come back to the customers who are using that service and we ask them, what is it that you are using it for? We revalidate it, and that's just the principles that we follow as part of the responsible AI. So it's not just the principles and guidelines and the frameworks that we've created. It is the tools and processes that we have, and a lot of training and best practices that we share with everyone who's working with us so that they can use it responsibly. And no conversation can actually be complete on AI without talking about the trust that you have on your AI provider for the data that is being used, because data is at the core of AI, and that's the most sensitive thing that exists in the world today. So I just want to iterate and reiterate that your data is your data. It is not our data. It is your data. You decide how do you monetize it, how do you leverage that data to get the information, what do you do with that data is up to you. So the data that you use for creating your AI systems in OpenAI, it is not available to any other customer. It is not available to OpenAI. It is not available to OpenAI for training the models. It is not available to Microsoft or any of the third-party partners to train any of the resources that are there. It is only available in your resource group for you to train it on your own data and to be used by you yourself. And that's actually also based on the fundamentals of security, which is the enterprise grade security that Microsoft Azure provides. So just wrapping it up, we offer this service with in 60 plus Azure regions, secured, compliant, MATI compliant in India as well. And OpenAI will be very, very soon available in India data center as well. So I really urge you, if you haven't taken the step in your department to play around with it for different use cases that you can create, we would love to work with you to create MVPs, to create those minimal viable products in a very, very short and defined time frame, and happy to take any conversation offline. Thank you.